Welcome back to this week's edition of the Rock and Roll Ghost podcast. This week we are very happy to have Tim Matheson, actor and director. He's in promoting right now the new season of Netflix's Virgin River, which I'll be honest, I haven't seen yet, and I'll have to check it out because you guys have been on a number of seasons now, and that's no small feat on Netflix. So how's that all going?
It's been going great. We have the third season has been on since last, I believe, June or July, and the next season premieres in July, fourth season. And don't tell anybody I said this, but we're going back to shoot the fifth season. Okay,
great. Well, that's a good sign of success then.
You know what it is? Netflix really adores this show, and I think Ted Sarandis' wife loves the show, which is never hurts when the boss's wife likes it. And it also, I think, was fortuitous, and as bad as the pandemic is and was, it was kind of the show people could go to for comfort. It's like comfort food. It's about a sweet little town up in the mountains and these crazy people that live there and their lives and their relationships with each other. So I think that was very comforting to a lot of people.
Yeah. And you're the doctor in the town, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I play Doc Mullins, Vernon Mullins, and as a guy who escaped the big city to get back to a one-on-one relationship with his patients rather than processing herds of people through and running a hospital, he just decided quality of life was more important, I think.
That's great. No, it sounds like I'm going to actually check it out because you guys have been on that long. It must be worth. And I always need another show to binge. So it sounds.
I know. Could you believe you could go through as much media as we do?
I think if someone told me that when I was a kid, when I was an avid TV watcher, that like everything practically would be available to me to watch, I think I would have my head would have exploded.
I have just gotten to this point too, where I had thousands of DVDs because, especially when I direct, I study film, I study, the way a director works and shot this and the coverage and the staging too. And so I would just play over and over and over and over certain movies while I'm doing a certain project that they related to. And I just, actually, we have a place called Amoeba Records out here that actually, Amoeba. So they'll buy back all your DVDs. I took 1,000 DVDs in there and box sets and all this stuff because you can just get it online now. And so instead of consuming all this space, you just, okay, I'll pay $5 for it. What the heck? It's just, I think it's easier and smarter and more efficient.
Yeah. I've been balancing buying more digital options than buying physical product, but there are times I still, especially when it comes to Criterion stuff.
Oh, please. Yeah.
That's the stuff you need the physical copy of.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing too. And any film student or student of film or film fan typically wants to own it because you can stop it, you can back it up, you can you can't quite do that as easily on a digital.
Right. Yeah. No, it's very cool. And yeah, I was very impressed. I didn't realize you would have directed as many shows as you have. You from the 90s on, you've really done a lot of work that way. What made you want to become a director as well?
There's two things. All actors think they can direct better than the directors they're working with, or as well, and they're wrong. Because I was a student of film and I studied every director that I'd worked with on episodic and features, and there's just still a lot you don't know how to do or the best way to do, or that is imperative that you do a certain way, when you're directing, or ways to cheat or ways to economize, those are things that come with experience. I would say you learn to direct in an editing room. But the second thing that made me want to direct was I produced a movie, and I had to hire a director. I wasn't directing at the time, and we hired a director, and he just wouldn't research it. He wouldn't. It was based on a Japanese series, very successful Japanese series, and he wouldn't look at them. He would not study them. He would not, because he wanted his sort of artistic vision to be untainted. And it drove me crazy because he didn't do a very good job, So I just said, well, you know what? I'm not going to be in this situation anymore. I'll do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And you've done so many shows. I mean, you've done The West Wing, Criminal Minds, Burn Notice, Psych. The list is absolutely incredible. And the fact that you got to do The West Wing when you were actually on The West Wing, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you directed any ones that you were on that week, but
no, I wasn't in that episode. Lawrence O'Donnell had written that episode. Okay. And it was the last year of the show. They'd asked me to direct beforehand, but I just couldn't, with the director's dance card, it gets filled up with, at the beginning of the season, you get booked into all these different shows when you're doing episodic. And I sort of worked my way up in episodic to doing pilots, and I did a number of pilots, not Criminal Minds, but, and loved it,
Yeah.
So it was a thrill to do it. And now I must say the business has changed a lot. White male directors were the predominant directors for 50, 100 years, and so in the last 10 years, this has become much more diverse, much more allowing people and of color and minority and interests and female directors to enter and to have the opportunity to direct. So right. It's probably I felt it's like a good time for me to sort of back off and just focus on acting. Mm-hmm. And I've had my space at the table for so long, and I've been so fortunate. And it's time for new generation and new people to bring it.
Yeah, no, that's very cool actually. I there's so much more TV now too. On top of it, that there's so much more. We'd have to imagine there's more work than ever for everyone. Quite frankly, the way things have gone.
I think so. I think you're absolutely right. I think, with the streaming businesses and the caliber of the work and the people that are participating, you have movie stars that are doing limited series, because the problem I think of doing a feature is you may have a book that should be a 4-hour movie, ask Chris Nolan anytime he makes a movie. And so then you've got to condense it to 2 hours and bring it down. So a lot of compromises are made. So it's a limited series, which is 6, 8, 10 episodes. It can more than likely, often be the best way to tell a story.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I was interested in is that when you directed, I believe, primarily dramas. And the funny thing is, because my first knowledge of you is, it's going to be obvious, was Animal House. I actually was in Hawaii. I was 7 or 8 years old, and my mother and my aunt and uncle actually took me to see it. Now, that seems, most people would not agree that was a good age to see that movie, but I was such a Belushi fan from Saturday Night Live that I kind of begged to go.
You were watching Belushi when you were 6 or 7 years old. You were watching Saturday Night Live. How could you stay up that late?
There's a lot of reasons. Probably not for my health, mental health. I mean, but I happened to be able to catch him, and he became a favorite. So yeah, we were in Hawaii, and the movie was out, and I was like, and I loved it, and I've loved it ever since. So in my beginning, of knowing you was as a comedy guy, but you've done so much that I've been even looking over your credits. I had no idea you were Johnny Quest.
Oh yeah, that was
a show I watched as a kid.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And I've been so fortunate to have started it at an early age, and there have been so many different phases of my career. And as you age and grow, you transition from one phase to the next. And I've always maintained that about every 6-7 years, you have to transform your career. You have to look in a new direction. You have to mix it up, because let's say you were a hit in a hit movie or a hit show or whatever, that you kind of wear out your welcome with that character or that style, and then, or you get lazy. And it's nice to mix it up. But I had only done, let's see, I was a kid, I did a lot of kid parts, and I did Johnny Quest and a lot of voice work, and worked with tremendous actors. Then there was a Western phase of my career. I was in The Virginian and Bonanza and The Quest with Kurt Russell. And then at that point, I said, I got to mix this up. I didn't like the parts I was getting as an actor, as a young leading man, or whatever you want to call it. And I was the nice guy next door, it wasn't fun. And so I took some improv classes and with the Groundlings here in Los Angeles. And then I got an audition for Animal House, and I got that. That was my first comedy. So there's that shift again, and the same thing applied to me as a director. I started out with like procedural, Without a Trace, Cold Case, Criminal Minds, and it was just, you're always running on the set going, more blood, and it was, it gets a little kind of heavy on your emotions when you're constantly dealing with like the worst, the most corrupt people. Yeah. So that's when I shifted, and I said, let me just do what I love doing the best, which is comedy. So that's when I did Psych, and I did, other shows like that were just so much more fun. And, and Covert Affairs was a pilot I did, which had that, it was a drama, but about a woman who was in the CIA, but she was in over her head, and she wasn't really trained. So there was a comedic or a lighter aspect to it that informed the whole show. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was so successful.
Yeah, you got to you would get to play with both elements, and it wasn't just strictly, because it took me forever to watch Criminal Minds. And when I did watch it, I was like, wow, that actually is a lot more grim than most network TV. If HBO or something, they really could have gone, crazy.
Well, it was like the serial killer of the week, and it was like, oh my God, and you'd come out of it, and I'd have to just clear my head and go, holy, because I've just been watching one horrible movie after another, gruesome, just Michael Mann movies, and oh my God, the things that I'd study to do that, and it was like, okay, now I need a break. I want to watch some Laurel and Hardy.
yeah, that's great. No, and I mean, I was, again, you're talking about being a young actor. You were on Leave It to Beaver.
Oh yeah,
which is truly incredible. I mean, just like, I remember watching reruns of Leave It to Beaver on my little black and white TV that I had in the basement. If I wanted to watch something myself, I'd have to go downstairs and play with the damn rabbit ears.
Oh, sure. You're lucky you got the signal down in the basement, I mean, yeah. When I got cast in a recurring role, and it was like my first, I had done numerous, I had like My Three Sons, and I had done shows like that, but all of a sudden I got 3 episodes of Leave It to Beaver, and I thought, man, I've really hit here. This is, and I went to a party at Jerry Mather's house, and it was like my first Hollywood party. I went 15, 14, and it was a great journey, and I learned so many things from each different phase of my career, and sadly made all the mistakes you can make, but the trick is not to make them twice. I think that's sort of where it's at.
No, you've had, I think you've had a kind of one of those, I don't want to say blessed, but considering it, you started out as a child actor and you're still working today. You've gone from black and white, or I don't know, was Leave It to Beaver in black and white still?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I that show was on forever, so I forget. To now you're on streaming with Netflix. It's like you span the eras pretty much of TV, which is amazing. And look at you, man. You look great. You
Thanks.
look so damn young.
Well, I think I'm blessed with good genes, and so far haven't really needed any surgical enhancements. But it never hurts. I must say now, it's so funny now. There are movie stars. And of course, you always want to protect the portraiture of your movie star. And in a movie, you always want them to look as good as they can look. So you shoot them from a certain angle and stuff. But now they're in their contracts. Many actors have CGI clauses so that they can choose certain scenes and you can do, I get 20 CGI scenes or, shots or whatever. And you can, take out a little fold in the neck, or you can just slightly, enhance. But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's all about smoke and mirrors, and it doesn't have to be real. It just has to appear to be real for the brief moments on the screen.
Yeah, but then there are people like Tom Cruise and Paul Rudd Tom Cruise barely looks different in Top Gun Maverick than he did in Top Gun.
Yeah, he's remarkable. I mean, he's the biggest movie star in the world, and he works harder probably than any actor alive.
I have to imagine.
To do that, and he has a certain ethic and he's earned his place there. And he's really smart.
Yeah.
He knows which movies to do, which movies not to do, and generally speaking, he's chosen very well.
Yeah, no, for the most part, yeah. I'm sure he'd like to take back the Mummy, but
yeah, seemed like a good idea at the time, right?
Hey, that whole idea, they had Javier Bardem for like one of the monster movies. They had Johnny Depp. They had all these people, and then there's that famous photograph of all of them together for the the Universal Monster series that never happened. But
right.
Let me ask you about one movie. My best friend had reminded me of this movie, and I watched it on Amazon Prime recently. He wants to know, what was the atmosphere like on the set of Up the Creek?
It was very enjoyable. We were up in Bend, Oregon, shooting it all on location one summer. And we were on the river, and I loved river rafting. I had already been doing it in my life for
you lucked out
7 to 10 years before that. And it was I got to know Danny Monahan from the Porky's movies, and I was working with Stephen First from Animal House, and we all felt that it wasn't the best script, but we could make it better. And if it was an almost good script, and it was an almost really good movie. We had a ball. We really had a ball, and
it's brilliantly ridiculous, is what I basically. I mean, I know I watched it as a kid on cable, so when watching it, there wasn't a whole lot that was familiar for some reason. I must have only watched it once, but man, just seeing it again though, it is just masterfully ridiculous.
So stupid. And I got to tell you, playing those scenes with the dog, I mean, that was one of the most well-trained dogs. But you've got to understand that while we were shooting it, there's a guy right off stage, probably behind, so the dog is looking at him, yelling, come on, Duke, sit, no, Duke, speak. And so you're trying to act around that. And it was a good sort of concentration exercise. And it sort of heightened the ridiculousness of it and the fun of it. The dog is like almost a talking dog, It was wonderful.
Just that beginning, the beginning with the damn bird in, around the credits where it people kept trying to kill the bird. It's like right away I'm like, oh yeah, this movie's insane.
Yeah. Little Monty Python sort of,
Yeah.
It just at that time, what the A movie of the moment that everybody wanted to do, about the same time everybody was auditioning for this movie, was Police Academy, the first Police Academy. And I had read that and I said, yeah, I want to be in that movie. That's the, and this was sort of the fallback movie. And, Steve Gutenberg, I think, did Police Academy, and that, wise choice. He's wonderful. And so when this movie came along, it seemed like a good thing to jump into. I wanted to stay doing comedies, we almost had a good film there.
Well, if anybody wants to watch something that's just purely stupidly funny, Up the Creek is for you, because it is sheer brilliance in insanity.
Good to hear.
Another movie I watched of yours, which I've seen now 4 of the 5 Dirty Harry movies, and I had never seen Magnum Force 2.
Oh wow, that was the number 2.
Yeah, so I watched that recently, and you play one of the motorcycle cops, Sweet.
Yeah.
You're actually really good in it.
Thank you.
But one thing, can you clear up for me, because the movie does get a bit confusing towards the end, for me at least. Was Sweet actually a bad guy, or was he just, like they said, set up to take the fall because they needed somebody to take the fall?
I mean, honestly, we never discussed that. It was not, I mean, he was a very earnest guy, good cop, probably been in the military, and he was not a smart cop. He stood in front of a door, when he got shot. And I said, no cop would ever do this, stand on a door and bang in front, it's coming, police, open up, because boom. But the director looked at me and he says, you got to die. You just got to die here.
We don't have any other way to do it. We're doing it this way.
I mean, I got to think that he probably was a good guy that was being, utilized there. And
because David Soul was truly the main villain.
Yeah, David was. And Clint was, it was one of those seminal moments in my career where, I knew him on Rawhide, and I had not at that point seen Fistful of Dollars, Few Dollars More. I had not seen those, and I was a more highbrow kind of jerk. I mean, I was like, Truffaut and Bergman, and so I just thought, okay, so he got lucky. Here's a guy who's a TV actor, got lucky, and he's a movie star right now.
Yeah.
But how long is this going to last? And so I get on the set. I went up 2 weeks early, and I rode around with the cops, and I went to I qualified at their firing range.
Yeah.
With the weapons and which I think it was a .357 Magnum at that time, which was a revolver.
Yeah.
And so I did my research and my homework, and then we start shooting, and the first scene we shot was in the range, the underground range. And I introduced myself to Clint, and I said, listen, being the generous actor that I was, I said, listen, you want to run lines, you want to, talk about it, or backstory, anything, I'm up for it. And he goes, no, I think there's something pretty special about the first time you say a dialogue, and I like it when it's on camera. And I said, okay, sure, great, Mr. East, yeah, great, Clint, yeah, whatever. And I walked away thinking, he's not a real actor. Real actors rehearse.
Yeah. And
we started shooting, and honest to God, he was so simple and honest and real. And I would say the best listener I've ever worked with, that I was just, he just won me over. I walked away at the end of that day saying, this guy's the real deal. He's one of the best actors I've ever worked with. And so economical and so simple, and couldn't be nicer. Always had the same crew with him. He kept them busy. I think that was one of the reasons why he did those Any Which Way But Loose pictures with the orangutan and the ape, because he wanted 2 pictures a year for these people to do, so that he could keep them employed enough to stay with him. Same deep cinematographer, the same grip and electric crew and sound and a prop guy. And they were the best in the business, and Buddy Van Horn was his stunt coordinator. And second unit director. So I got to tell, I was lucky to be in that movie. I loved it. And, I learned a lot.
Yeah. Well, I read that, which I didn't really know before, but when I was reading about Magnum Force, because I was amazed at who wrote the script. It was a combination of John Milius and Michael Cimino, which, I mean, in retrospect, it's like, holy crap. Like, you know, Cimino worked with Clint on Thunderbolt and Lightfoot as well. So there was that. And I know Milius was pissed off with the movie, but Milius is
pissed off at everything.
Yeah. He's a very angry man, you know, but they said that Eastwood, the director, had a problem because he wanted to just do, like you said, one take and maybe two. He didn't want to fuss around with it, you know, too much. And I think that's interesting.
Is that what they said? Because it's interesting. I must say, I think it was Ted Post, right?
That sounds right.
And I don't much remember Ted. I would say, you know, with all due respect, I mean, he set shots and, you know, it was always Clint's shot.
Yeah.
Always, because, you know, you'd go home early in the day, you'd have lunch, maybe shoot another hour or two, and then you were done. Because they didn't do a lot of extra shots. They didn't, you know, God, we might need this. Oh, let's get do it again. And I think as we've learned the way he shoots, like he always likes to shoot the rehearsal, whether the actors know it or not, you know, which is an old John Ford gag, you know, that he would. I remember one time, I forget it was the movie, it might have been The Searchers, or no, it was another Young Mr. Lincoln, or I'm not sure, but there was a big crowd scene. Ward Bond's in it, and he'd been out. He took Ward out the night before and got him drunk because Ward was nervous about this big emotional scene.
Right.
And he said, "No, we're not doing it tomorrow. We're not going to do it tomorrow." And he goes, "Oh, great." So he went out and got drunk, and they got him up in the morning, said, "We are doing that scene. Let's go." And then he would tell him the different blocking, you know, or not tell him any blocking, so that all of a sudden you're shooting a scene and people are bumping into him, and it would force the actors to be real and to think on your feet, you know. I mean, but Clint, yeah, he likes that magic mistake, you know, the real moment that just sort of comes out when you drop a glass, you know, or whatever. And I must say he was John Ford and John Wayne wrapped into one body. I mean, he was one of the best directors that, I mean, The Unforgiven is like one of those perfect.
Oh God. I mean, one of my favorites of his is A Perfect World, which wasn't a hit.
Yep.
Especially considering Costner was huge at that point, and Clint was on a resurgence as well. But that to me is a brilliant film.
Yeah.
He's done so many brilliant films. I mean, you know, he's done a couple that I'm like, I don't know about that one, but he works still.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah. He
movie.
Gran Torino was, I thought it was the last Dirty Harry movie. I mean, it was the final Dirty Harry movie. And The Unforgiven was a movie that he held off making for 15 years till he was old enough to play the part convincingly, you know. And then I also, from my taste, I thought the best love story that he ever did, and has been made, and you know, one of the tops was Bridges of Madison County, where he was
another great one.
20 years too old to play that part.
Yeah.
Or 10 anyway, you know. And yet what he did with Meryl Streep and the connection that they had, and you know, I mean, he basically just, that's her movie. So he just, yeah, I mean, he's exceptional. He's just exceptional.
And he's done so many. I mean, everybody thinks of him as this tough guy, but he's done a lot of different, like you said, with Bridges of Madison County. He's done Birdie. I mean,
yeah,
a movie about Charlie Parker. I mean, well, who really at that time could have gotten a movie like that made except for Clint, you know?
And he used his power for the good purpose, I think, you know, and told great stories, not always box office hits, but it's a joy that movie was made, because he's a musician, you know, and he writes music and plays music, and yeah, he's one of those special people.
Yeah. Well, I know I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but there are a few more things I kind of want to
You bet.
So one of my favorite movies in the 80s, I think I saw it in the theater 4 times. In fact, my local theater had it on like the second run thing. You know, we actually had a movie theater in town, and I swear to God, I took well, not all my friends, but I took 3 or 4 friends with them. Like, you got to see this movie. I've seen it 3 times already. It's hilarious. And then they played the reels out of order.
Well, perfect.
But Fletch, and you are so brilliant in Fletch, because you're supposed to be this nice guy that's dying of cancer that hires, you know, Chevy Chase doing his typical, you know, jackass shenanigans in it. And it turns out you're not such a nice guy after all.
Not really. Oh, it was, you know, it was a treat. I got to work with Chevy, who was on his best behavior at the time. You know, he was clean and sober, and he was such a big star, but he used to browbeat directors into doing it his way, you know. And this director, Michael Ritchie, who was the tallest, smartest, and best, one of the best directors I've ever worked with and got to know as a friend, he just charmed Chevy. He just said, you know, okay, but he was the boss. He said, Chevy, listen, we'll do one your way, but first we're going to do it my way, and then we'll do one your way, you know, and we'll get it. We'll just, and whichever one works best is the one I will use. And he was candid. I mean, you know, make me look better. And if it doesn't work, I won't use it. I promise you can try anything. And it really suited, you know, I think he needed a strong director to kind of push him a bit. And also about Chevy, he didn't really think of himself as an actor. You know, he didn't think like actors think. So when we get into his close-ups, he said, say anything to me, just you ad lib, improv, just throw shit at me. I don't care, you know, because it would elicit a real reaction from him. So I got him to crack up, or I didn't embarrass him or whatever. And I'd say just horrifying things. and hopefully they're not on a DVD anyway. And
that would be awesome though.
But Fletch was one of the 2 great parts that Chevy had, you know, Clark Griswold in the Lampoon series, Vacation series, and Fletch, you know, and that he was just born to play. And he didn't, you know, as a lot of times I find in comic actors, they're here comes the joke, you know, they're pointing it out, they're laying into it, they, you know, or they're doing just shtick, you know, and Chevy in those 2 movies, in that series of movies, Fletch and the vacation movies, he was Clark Griswold. I mean, that was a wonderful, it sort of encompassed all his parts, his sweetness, his stupidity, you know, his lecherous qualities too. And Fletch was just, you know, this sarcastic kind of over the, you know, just really, really smart and really, you know, like to mess with people.
No, he in the best of his, you know, performances, he always had this natural thing that I've always liked, and the lines seem to come out from nowhere, quite honestly. But I have to say that, going back to you, between Animal House and Up the Creek and another, I will say this is probably one of the best sequels ever made, is A Very Brady Sequel. You have a natural comic gift for making everything just so easy, but the Brady sequel is sheer brilliance.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was, those 2 films I thought were just the only way you could do a sequel about the Brady Bunch. I mean, it's like, do we really need to see more Brady? I mean, really? And interestingly enough, my perspective on it was that the Brady Bunch was a ripoff. I maintain of Yours, Mine, and Ours, which is a movie that I did with Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda when I was
I saw that. Yeah,
it was about two families that got the parents remarry, and one family's got 9 kids and one, or 8 kids, and one family's got 7, and then they have another one.
Way too many kids.
Lucy, and but I always thought the Brady's was a ripoff of that, but it was. I just thought the weirdest thing was I was sitting in my trailer. You have a TV in your trailer between takes and stuff, and we're hanging out, and Channel 5 here in Los Angeles, KTLA, would run, I think, back-to-back episodes of the Brady Bunch. And I think they were in black and white. And then, I could be wrong, and then we'd go inside and shoot on a set that was exactly like the Brady living room. And it was like, what, how does this ever happen?
Yeah.
It was just nuts.
Oh yeah. The Brady house set, I mean, the amount of work that must have had to go into the fine details of that, because every ounce of that house is exactly the way I remembered it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was that nuts. And, Gary Cole is one of my favorite actors.
He's brilliant.
He was brilliant, and those kids, oh my God, they were just all, and they were all of the same piece. I mean, they weren't too over the top. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful treat. And I got to be, I think, what was it, on a hallucinogenics in that.
The mushrooms.
The shrooms, yeah.
The animated sequence.
Woo! And it was one of those. I remember the day we shot
spaghetti with those mushrooms you had.
And I could do it. There's nothing I couldn't do once you've eaten mushrooms. There's not any shtick. I said, I told the director, I said, can I just go? And I was barking like a dog, and then, a lot of stuff that wasn't in the script, but it made sense to me.
Yeah.
Really fun. You get a license like that as an actor in a form like that supports kind of overacting or zany acting. It's quite wonderful. Yeah,
and I just watched that recently, and that's all. I like the sequel more than they're both great, but the original's so 90s versus 60s or 70s kind of thing that it kind of gets a little shticky, but the sequel is just sheer brilliance.
Oh, that's great to hear. I love it.
Yeah. Let me ask you. So, when you're not acting, when you're not directing, when you're not working, generally, what do you like to do at this point in your life?
Well, the last couple of years have been a little weird, but I do love to travel. My wife's Italian and Canadian Italian, and her mother's from Italy, and she has family in Italy. So we love to travel and explore the world. And we've been building our house here in Hollywood for the last couple of years, and we're just finishing that up. So those are kind of the, in addition to just like, I like to play golf. I haven't played golf in 100 years, but it's, it's nice to have a sports activity that I can get out and do. And basically we'll try, when we travel, Elizabeth Marigetto, my wife, and I, we will just walk everywhere. So, go to Rome, New York, or Paris, or Florence, and walk 8 to 10 miles a day. So we're just, we just want to, it's like a campaign, we just get out there and we go, here, let's go there. Okay. So we walk and you get to see more of the city and meet more of the people when you're on foot rather than in a car or something.
All right. That's great. No, that's really cool. Do you have anything else you've been working on besides Virgin River?
I was in This Is Us, and that was a lovely treat to work with those fabulous actors. I was Mandy Moore's father.
That's right. I did read that. Yeah, it's not a show. It's not a show that made my
my
way.
And I started watching it only after I'd seen an episode or two, but they were such good actors and so devoted to that show. And
it's a good cast.
You know, and Milo Ventimiglia is so professional and so focused, so that when most of my stuff is with him anyway. So I just it was a joy to go to work and perform with him and with Mandy as well. And then I've done this other show called Evil. That's on Paramount, and it's crazy character. You know, it's all about demons and possessions and whatever. So and that's a lot of fun. That's been a lot of fun working with Christine Lottie, whose husband used to produce and direct the West Wing, Tommy Schlamme. I've known her for forever. So that's been great. And I, you know, I must say, not directing gives me back my life, because when you're directing, you've got to do prep, you've got to shoot, and then you do post, you edit. So it's 3 times as long as an actor works, if not 4 times as long. And it's how many of those can you do, you know? And if you do 2 or 3 in a row, like episodic directing is very difficult. And especially as if you're as, I don't know, dedicated or focused as I am, the smart directors in TV are just like, I knew this one guy he's a very, very good director, and he's still directing, and I'm not mentioning any names, but he basically had been a cameraman. He'd been a cinematographer, and he would just say, and he had an accent. I won't try and do too much, but he goes, well, okay, the scene is you come in here and then you yap, 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 you say all this dialogue, and then you walk over here and yap, 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 and then when you walk out. But he did it in such a way that it's like, you take care of the acting. I'm setting up the shot, and you know, bullshit, and cut.
Yes.
And it was so funny, but so charmingly done that, and he didn't get all worked up about it. You know, he didn't shoot 19 takes of it. You're really asking the actor to do the job, you know, and Clint worked that way too, you know. Jeffrey Donovan worked on a Clint movie with Angelina Jolie, as I recall. I don't remember the name of it.
The Changeling.
Yes. And it was a period film set in LA, and Jeffrey got the bad DA or the tough DA part. And he'd not met Clint. I don't know if he auditioned or not, but anyway, comes out first day. Finally, Clint comes up to him and meets him, and he says, "No, call me Clint, not Mr. Eastwood." And he said, "Okay, let's just shoot this." And no rehearsal. He said, "Go out, go to you go up to the train, and then you come back and you go this way." He said, "Okay, let's just shoot it." And he goes, "Well, I don't get it." He says, "Come on, let's just shoot it." And so they go and do the take, and Clint walks up afterwards and goes, "Cut, Brent, that's great. Let's move it on." And Jeffrey goes up, he goes, No, Clint. We can't use that one. And he goes, "Yeah, why not?" And he said, "Well, I was supposed to say this, and I said this instead." And he goes, "Oh, okay, we'll do it again. Just don't do that." But basically, he's putting everybody on notice. Bring it. Bring it, take one.
Right.
We're using it. If whatever it takes, because there's some actors, this is backstage stuff, but there's some actors and they use those early takes as rehearsals.
Yeah.
So take 7 and 8, you're starting to get the Clint. No. Whatever that preamble is that you're doing through takes 1 through 7, do it before you get here.
Yeah.
Bring it on take 1, because out of respect for the other performers, and we're not going to overwork it, you know. So
well, I have to imagine because as a film director himself, he is economical in every sense of the word. His pictures generally are not extravagant budgeted, even the bigger ones. I mean, you know, it's not that way, because he knows how to work and work smart, you know, which is great. I'm sure
it burns an actor out if you have to. I mean, people say, "Oh gosh, you learn all those lines and all those words. How do you do that?" That's not difficult. I mean, you got to spend some time doing that, but it's not words, it's thoughts. You know, if you have the thoughts, the words are there. but it's like having to do a scene in the master, in the rehearsals, in the masters, 7-8 takes, let's say. Then you got a tighter version of it, 6 takes. Then you got another close up here, a close up 2-shot, 3-shot. You know, you've done this scene 100 times, and not every scene, but you know. And if it's an emotional scene, you're wrecked. And Clinton and myself, I only want the actors to do it as few times as they can. You know, because even if it's a simple thing with a lot of dialogue or whatever, it's wearing. You know, let's just make it fresh, and then print it and move on. You know, let's not beat this to death, because God knows you just don't want to get caught acting. You know, so
Yeah.
and the more you do it, that's the way it is.
I hear. All right, that's cool. Okay, one more question, and we can wrap it up and
Good, Brad.
back to whatever you're not doing today. But what is one role in a film or TV show that you did that you wish had gotten more visibility?
There was a movie I did. I was an actor, mostly doing television movies at the time, you know, so which was a great span of my career, maybe 5 to 7 years. And I got this script, and it was written by Frank Darabont. And actually there was another writer, and Frank was going to direct it, but Frank had really reworked the script. And it was called Buried Alive. And it was sort of a noir kind of story about a guy who was a nice guy, who was a contractor, and he just wanted to live in the country and move away from the big city with his wife. And they got married, and his wife was miserable in the country. And she met a doctor, and the doctor decided that she could just kill her husband, and they'd have all his money and everybody'd be happy. So
except for the doctor.
You know, and what happens is there's this toxin from the Japanese blowfish. Yeah. That will make it appear you had a heart attack. And so the trick of the film was she was ready to put this poison in his wine, and then she can't do it. And then she can't do it. And then she drops it into the trash or on a sink or something and spills part of it, but then grabs it and throws it in the wine and then gives him the wine. So this sets up the fact that he's buried alive because he didn't get enough of the toxin to be dead. And, and then it looks like he had a heart attack. He died. They take him to the funeral home, and she doesn't want to spend any money, so they don't even embalm him. They just put him in a casket and bury him. And then he regains consciousness in the middle of the night, and a storm is outside, with lightning and stuff. And he claws his way out of the grave and comes home to his beloved wife, only to find out she's there with this doctor, and he overhears the fact that she and that guy tried to kill him. Yeah. And he then exacts his revenge and basically builds the house into a maze, traps them both inside of it, and wow. It was a huge hit on USA at the time. So much that it spawned a sequel, which I co-starred in and directed, and with Ali Sheedy, and I always wanted to do a feature of that. And Frank Darabont wanted to do it. It's a clever, wonderful little horror film. You know, it's just wonderful. Yeah. But that was a movie I thought that, and it got tremendous. You know, they used to run it on New Year's Eve, I think, or Halloween Eve, both of them back to back on USA.
Oh, that's cool.
They were, they're very fun movies. And it finally, I think last year came out on DVD. I mean, there's some backstage story about why it's been so long. And but that was one of them.
Okay, I'll have to check that out because that sounds fun.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you think.
All right. Well, Tim, God, I cannot thank you enough. This is
thank you, Brad.
The kid that saw Animal House way too young to get to talk to Otter all these years later. It's pretty amazing, and I'm so happy for your success and that you're doing well, and that you agreed to be on the show. So I wish you the best of luck. the new season of Virgin River is coming out in July, and there's going to be that's the 4th, and there's going to be a 5th. So you've heard it here. If you like Virgin River, you've got a couple more seasons at the very least. All right.
Thank you so much, Brett. It's been a treat. And hey, you fucked up. You trusted us. You know what can I say?
Tell those assholes to shut up.
Shut up, you assholes.
That's forever.
Oh,
that movie will never not be funny to me. So
no, it's sort of a rite of passage. My kids had not even seen it, and I get a call from my daughter when she was away at college for the first 2 months. She goes, Dad, I'm at a toga party, and you got to say hi to my friends. And it's because she'd seen the movie, and
yeah.
you know, every freshman who goes to college watches the movie.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tim, thank you again for taking your time.
Thank you, Brett.
Rest of your day, okay?
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Thank you. All right. Take care. Bye.